Hello and welcome to one and all. In today's class, I am going to give you the answer for the next LAQ, that is illustrate the consumer's equilibrium using indifference curve analysis. Okay, so this is the third LAQ in unit 2 which you can expect in the board exam. Okay, so before I proceed with the answer, let me give you a brief introduction or the brief meaning of what is the meaning of indifference curve analysis, or what is the meaning of indifference curve. Okay, so the first of all, the indifference curve. So this analysis was given by two economists, Hicks and Allen. Okay, so this indifference curve analysis was based on ordinal utility approach. So now what is the meaning of ordinal utility approach? See, the law of diminishing marginal utility and the law of equi-marginal utility, those two laws were given by Alfred Marshall based on cardinal approach, that is cardinal utility approach. That means what? According to Marshall, the consumer can measure the satisfaction in terms of cardinal numbers. But other economists, especially Hicks and Allen, they believe that the consumer cannot measure the satisfaction because it is a psychological thing. At the most, what the consumer can do, the consumer can arrange its choices based on his preferences. What he can do is, apples are my first preference, mangoes are my second preference, oranges are my third preference, etc. So this is ordinal numbers. Okay, so at the most the consumer can arrange his choices based on his preferences like first, second, third, etc. So based on ordinal utility approach, how the consumer attains the equilibrium position, Hicks and Allen have used the indifference curve analysis to explain the equilibrium or the maximum satisfaction position of the consumer. Okay, now what is the meaning of indifference curve? So indifference curve, let me explain to you simply with the help of a diagram. Let us assume there are two goods. The consumer is having, for the time being, assume the consumer is having three baskets. Three baskets, each containing mangoes and apples. Different quantities of mangoes and apples. Okay. So let us assume x-axis, that is good X, mangoes, and y-axis apples, that is good Y. Okay, so the first basket is having 5 apples, 5 units of good Y, and 1 unit of good X, that is mango. So this is one combination, first combination. So first basket is containing 5 apples, that is good Y, and 1 mango, that is good X. Okay, now the consumer wants to consume one more mango. So since his money income is limited, he has to sacrifice certain units of commodity Y. So how much he is willing to sacrifice to get one more unit of mango? So in order to get one more unit of mango, the consumer initially is willing to sacrifice 2 units of apples. So the second basket. So now the second basket is containing 3 apples, that is good Y, and 2 mangoes, that is good. So this is the consumer choice. He is willing to sacrifice 2 units of apple to get one more unit of mango. So 2 units of apples are sacrificed to get one more unit of mango. So this is the second combination. Okay, now in order to get, let us proceed. If he wants to get one more unit of mango, how much he is willing to sacrifice, how much units of apples he is willing to sacrifice now? Let us check out. So now he says that he is willing to sacrifice only one more unit of, so this is the third combination. Okay, now so the first basket, second basket, and now the third basket. So So the third basket contains 2 apples, and that is good Y, and 3 mangoes. Okay, so now what is happening here? The initially the consumer is willing to sacrifice 2 units of commodity Y, 2 apples, in order to gain 1 mango. But later he is willing to sacrifice only 1 apple to gain 1 more unit of mango. So how much he wants, so what exactly he is doing is substituting mangoes for apples. Okay, so in order to substitute, he has to give up certain units of apples. So that is what is known as the marginal rate of, let me put it here, this is what is known as the marginal rate of substitution, that is MRSX. So you can see that the rate at which the consumer is willing to substitute, the rate at which the consumer is willing to sacrifice units of commodity Y for commodity X, or in other words also units of commodity X for commodity. It can be either way, 1 unit for 1 unit of a particular commodity for other units of other commodity. So the rate at which the consumer is willing to substitute 1 unit for another unit keeps on decreasing. The marginal rate of substitution keeps on decreasing, because if you are asked to sacrifice more and more of a particular commodity, you want to have more and more of that particular commodity. That is the natural human tendency. So you will not be willing to sacrifice more and more units of a particular commodity, because you feel that you are losing the satisfaction from that particular commodity. This is the natural human tendency. To put it very, very simply, the consumer is willing to sacrifice lesser and lesser units of commodity Y to get additional units of commodity X. The consumer is willing to sacrifice lesser and lesser units of apples to get additional units of mangoes. That is what is known as the marginal rate of substitution, which keeps on decreasing. Now you join these 3 points, you are getting a curve. That curve is called as the indifference curve. The only thing is, either the consumer can pick up first combination, that is first basket, the consumer can pick up the second combination, that is the second basket, or the consumer can pick up the third combination, that is the third basket. All the 3 combination is all the 3 baskets or combination is going to give the consumer the same level of satisfaction. So that's why the consumer is indifferent, that is, he is not bothered, any basket is okay for him. So that is why it is called as the indifference curve analysis. Okay, now this is the meaning of indifference curve. Okay, now what is the meaning of indifference map? So let us check out what is the meaning of indifference map. Okay, so indifference map is, there is a set of indifference curves. See, all these are required if you have to write the answer. Okay, a set of indifference curve, that is what is known as the indifference map. So indifference map. So indifference map is a set of indifference curves drawn on different levels of income. Okay, so now let us assume, so good Y and good X. This is, now you know how the indifference curve is derived. Let us assume this is indifference curve 1 when the income of the consumer is 5,000. Okay, so he can consume any combination, any units of amount of commodity Y or commodity X which is lying on the indifference curve, which is going to give the consumer the same level of satisfaction. Now suppose if the consumer's income increases, he can purchase more of both commodity X as well as commodity Y. So this is IC2. Let us assume this is when the consumer's income increases to 10,000. Now again move on. Still his income increases. Now all these combinations are giving same level of satisfaction. So IC2 is giving more satisfaction than IC1. Now IC3 is giving more satisfaction than IC2, which is giving more satisfaction than IC1, because now here his income has increased to rupees 15,000. So again all the combinations is going to give the same level of satisfaction. So if you are drawing the set of indifference curve, that is what is known as the indifference map. Okay, so this is the second thing you have to know. Then you should also, but based on this, only if his income increases he can move to IC2. If his income is 5,000, he can only purchase whatever the combination that is lying on the IC1. Okay, so according to the level of income, the consumer has to choose the indifference curve. So under those conditions, how he is attaining the equilibrium position? So apart from the income, we should also know the prices of commodity X and prices of commodity Y. So for that we have to know what is the meaning of price line or budget line. Okay, so the price line or budget line so now again good X, good Y. So suppose the consumer is having the limited money income. Let us assume he wants to spend his entire money income on one commodity, either on Y or either on commodity X. This is the maximum. You join these two, you are getting the price line. This is called as the PL. Okay, so either commodity the entire money income is spent on either on commodity Y or either on commodity X. Okay, then this is the combination, but the consumer wants to have the both commodity X and commodity Y. That means what? He can choose any combination on this price line depending upon the prices of the commodities and his money income. He can choose any one of the combination on this price line. Okay, so either same like indifference curve, but this is in the form of a straight line. So he can choose any one of the combination which is lying on the price line, but he cannot choose any combination outside the price line, because this combination, this point is beyond the budget of the consumer, and he won't choose anything here because this gives a lesser satisfaction. So he won't choose anything inside the price line. He cannot choose anything outside the price line. So he can choose any one of the combination which is lying on the price line, because the prices of the commodities and also his income, they both are is affordable for the consumer. Okay, so this is the price line. Now we have to combine both the indifference curve as well as the price line. Then we have to check how the consumer is. We already know the indifference map, isn't it? So if you combine both, we will find out how the consumer is attaining the equilibrium position. Okay, so this is how the consumer attains the equilibrium position. Now let us move on to the answer. So the question is, illustrate the consumer's equilibrium using indifference curve analysis. So what is the answer? Indifference curve represents the combination of two goods giving the same level of satisfaction. That's why I have explained to you all the points on the indifference curve gives the same level of satisfaction. Each point represents different units of commodity X and commodity Y. So that is what the combination of two goods giving the same level of satisfaction to the consumer. The consumer attains equilibrium position when the price line or budget line is tangent to the indifference curve at its minimum point, because indifference curve says only the preferences of the consumer, but without taking into account the budget, the income of the consumer as well as the prices of the commodities. But in actual practice, the preferences of the consumer should match the budget, isn't it? So we have to superimpose the price line on the indifference curve at whichever point the price line is tangent to the indifference curve at its minimum point, that combination the consumer will choose. That combination is going to give the consumer the equilibrium or the maximum satisfaction position. Okay, so this is the introduction. Now there are certain assumptions as usual. Okay, so the first assumption is the consumer has an indifference map. So indifference map, just now I explained to you what is the meaning of indifference map. Showing his preferences. So as the income increases, he will keep on moving to the higher and higher levels of indifference curves. Then that means what? He is having a definite scale of preferences by arranging his choices in order. So that's why the consumer is having an indifference map. The second one, the consumer's money income and his taste and preferences remain constant. Okay. The third one, the prices of the two goods are given and constant. So both the income as well as the prices, they both are remaining constant. So given the prices and money income, which indifference curve, which combination the consumer will choose, the consumer has to choose so that he will get the maximum satisfaction or the equilibrium position. Okay. Then the fourth one, the consumer is rational. So what is the meaning of rational? The consumer wants to attain the maximum satisfaction. So that is, if he thinks that he wants to get the maximum satisfaction position, that means he is acting rationally. Then the fifth one, there is perfect competition in the goods market. So this assumption is mainly because one is perfect competition, the prices will not change, and another one is the commodities are homogeneous. So in order to have that, it is assumed that there is perfect competition in the goods market. Okay. Now there are two conditions for the consumer to be in equilibrium. So that's what the conditions of equilibrium. There are two conditions for the consumer to be in equilibrium. They are at the point of equilibrium, the price line or the budget line should be tangent to the indifference curve, and the second as a condition, MRS XY, that is the marginal rate of substitution of X for Y, must be equal to the price of X divided by price of Y. So MRS XY is represented by indifference curve. PX by PY is represented by the price line. So when they both are equal at the point of tangency, then the consumer attains the equilibrium position. Okay. Now the same thing is illustrated with the help of a diagram. So illustration of consumer's equilibrium. The consumer's equilibrium position can be explained with the help of an indifference map and a price line. So I already explained to you what is the indifference map, isn't it? So this is IC1, IC2 and IC3. Now this is the so for your understanding, so we have three. This is the indifference map of the consumer: IC1, IC2 and IC3. So now we have to know the prices of two commodities, that is represented by the price line. Now you draw the price line. So this is PL. Okay. So you can see this is the point of equilibrium. So that's what this diagram is representing. So now the consumer can, so this is the point of equilibrium at its minimum point. The price line is tangent at its minimum point. So that's what is mentioned here. So this is the point of equilibrium, point E, and IC1, IC2 and IC3. They both are set of indifference curve. That is what is known as the indifference map. So what is the PL? PL is the price line and E is the point of equilibrium. Okay. So now we can see that S is not the point of equilibrium, because even though price line is equal to the indifference curve at this point, you can see that IC1 is lying on the lower indifference curve. So the consumer can get more satisfaction, can purchase more commodities, more units of both good X and Y. Why should he satisfy himself by buying lesser units of commodity X and Y? So IC1 is not the option. So he will definitely choose IC2. IC3, so this one is beyond the capacity of the consumer. He cannot, his price line, his budget line is not allowing the consumer. So this is the beyond the capacity of the consumer. So he will not choose IC3 also. So the consumer can choose that combination where it is budget line is satisfying his preferences. So wherever at the tangency point, the price line is tangent to the indifference curve too. So this is the point of equilibrium. So that is what is explained here. So PL is the price line or the budget line, and E is the point of equilibrium. So it is clear from the above diagram that point S is not the equilibrium point of the consumer. So this is the point S, is not the equilibrium point, as it lies on a lower indifference curve IC1, and IC3 is beyond the capacity of the consumer given his limited income. Hence the consumer attains the equilibrium position at point E. So this is the point. Okay. On IC2, where the price line is tangent purchasing OM units of commodity, OM units of commodity X and ON units of commodity Y. At this point, the second condition, that is MRS XY must be equal to PX by PY, is also satisfied. So it's what IC2 represents MRS XY, price line PL represents PX and PY. So that condition is also satisfied. So this is all. Thus, this is how the consumer's equilibrium position is explained by Hicks and Allen using indifference curve analysis based on ordinal utility approach. So this part you can even write it in the introduction also, or you can write at the concluding part also. Okay. So this is also one of the important 10 marks question which can be asked in the board exam. So I have already explained 3 LAQs from unit 2. Out of these 3 questions, definitely you will be getting 1 LAQ. Okay. So hope you have understood the answer. If you have any doubts, if you have any suggestions, please don't fail to mention in the comment box. So otherwise, if you find this video useful, please like, share and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Okay. So until my next class, take care. Bye bye.